Welcome back to the Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, the Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire. We're playing around with jet engines, trying to see if we can blow out wildfires with essentially a storm of suppressant agent. And we'll let you know how that's turning out. So far, it's doing pretty well. Anyway, we're hosting a podcast right now, not putting out fires. And part of hosting a podcast or speaking publicly, is getting your breath groups correctly. I inhale, I breathe, I say something hopefully not too stupid, and then I breathe again. Well, when you're fighting fires, breathing is a challenge because you can't just, turn your head to the left like you would if you were swimming and then there's clean air and then you blow it out in the pool, right? It's filthy, disgusting, hot, smoky, toxic air all around you. How do you breathe so you can continue doing your work and not just, shallow breathing? I'm talking about the kind of breathing that 6,000 calories an hour of expenditure would require. I've got Claudio and Nick with us here, who are very, very advanced in the PPE space. Welcome to the Fire Break, gents. How are you? And PPE is
I'm great.
personal
Thanks for having
protective
me.
equipment, right? It's stuff that lets you breathe in an environment without necessarily providing canned air, bottled air.
Well, PPE, personal protective equipment, respiratory protection is one category of it. Because in the category, there's also things like hard hats, safety glasses, things of that nature, right?
Okay. So what's the part that you focus on?
We offer a full suite of products, but we also are manufacturers of respiratory protection products in two different category styles, being air purifying. So that means you have to breathe in and out to purify the air through a filter. We also manufacture supplied air products. So that means you'll have a mask hook up to some type of air source. And but the other categories that are available, as you mentioned earlier, are air in a can, what are referred to as self-contained breathing apparatus. So for the listeners, if you see a firefighter with a tank on his back, it's like a scuba tank, right?
Right.
So those are the different types of categories. There's one more called power air purifiers, which is battery operated respirators that have some type of filtration device.
So it draws outside air, and then it provides a little bit of positive pressure as it pushes it through a filter medium, and then you don't have to use your own inhale power to draw the air through the filtration medium, which probably you got your hands full enough with your axe and your chainsaw to be worried about the extra expenditure of trying to draw air in through the filter. I guess the advent, we'll call it the advent of COVID, was the first time that most people were exposed to the idea of PPE in their own lives. Can you tell me a little bit about how that impact of everyone now knows what PPE is to some degree or has some personal experience with it, and how that's impacted the market for the firefighting community?
Yeah, so I'll go first, Nick, and then you jump in from your side of it. Is that when you said the initials PPE, nobody really knew what it was before pandemic, right? So now everybody knows what personal protective equipment is, and the exposure to and knowledge from the general public's perspective has been phenomenal. They're understanding the need for better protection rather than putting a face cloth on your face. Respiratory protection in North America generally is certified by NIOSH, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. And people have come to understand that that's the gold standard in respiratory protection, meaning you have a product that has been certified to protect against a variety of different contaminants. Okay. Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, and it's also led to different ways to protect workers. So, for example, New York, at the start of the pandemic, they were using disposable masks called N95s. And then they researched reusable masks that they could also use for hazards from different gases. So they switched to elastomeric respirators in November of 2020 for all the fire and EMS officials in New York City.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it helps diminish the load on waste disposal.
Exactly.
Because
Absolutely. Like compared to, for example, a disposable mask they would have been using, they would have had to discard it after taking it off, after using it for more than an hour. But the reusable options can actually be reused for years. So it significantly reduces environmental waste, but it also offers them a better seal. So that way, when a firefighter or paramedic, for example, has to move their head quickly, an N95 could break their seal quite often, but an elastomeric respirator is designed to never break the seal. So they're never exposed to the hazard.
oh, that's great. I imagine, 1,000 years from now, when anthropologists are, digging through the layers of our society that's been left to try to figure out what happened, they're going to be digging through these giant mountains of waste, and then they're going to come to this layer, of 2 feet of N95 masks, and they're like, "Oh, I wonder what was going on back then."
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Claudio and I worked on a working group that just recently released a report. It was with Griffin Scientific, but included like officials from the White House, the CDC, OSHA, FEMA, the FDA, the State Department, and it's to look forward for future pandemics. And we're actually going to be transitioning even healthcare workers from disposable to reusable options. So it's
I
going to
see.
revolutionize the way we protect workers.
Oh, phenomenal. So the idea of the respirator is seems to be really a chronic problem. Maybe still has some mileage to go on it for use by wildland firefighters, um, who generally just don't like wearing the masks. That's because when you're in your 20s, you believe yourself to be invincible against all current and future threats. Until down the road you find out that you weren't, and you pay a pretty
And we're
big
also
price
learning a
for that.
lot more about like some of the hazards. Oh, sorry. We're
Yeah, go
also
ahead.
learning a lot more about the hazards that they breathe in as well. 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't really well known what a lot of the hazards were. And even currently, there's a lot of places that the firefighters don't know there's protections against gases. In Ontario, for example, where Claudio and I live, the province works with the MNR for wildland firefighters, and they're currently using cloth masks. And they've been told there's no protections against gases found in wildfire smoke. And it's only this year they started recognizing their occupational diseases like cancer, brain damage, lung damage, pregnancy issues, and all kinds of other health issues.
Yeah. So comfort is, it's very similar to the bulletproof vest, right? You could make a vest that stops anything, but can you get people to wear it? Right? Is it too hot, too sweaty, too bulky, too whatever? Right? Where the formula for protection is, you know, uh, the protection capability times the percentage of time that you use it. Right? If you get something that protects against anything you could possibly breathe, but you only wear it 10% of the time, that's maybe not as good as something that's less protective, but you wear it all the time. So how are you addressing the what I guess what doctors would call the compliance factor? People know they
Yeah.
should do it, but do they really do it? And what are the things that influence whether they do it or not, whether they wear it or not?
So let me take you down our journey, right? So I've been a long timer in the business, like I mentioned, 44 years, and I was in the beginning stages when respiratory protection was really starting to take effect and being used in the industrial setting, in the occupational market, right? So if
Yeah,
you think of people that are welding, working in foundries, trying to simulate hot applications, working in refineries in blazing hot weather and so forth, right? So, and now my experience in the healthcare sector, because we developed a respirator, a reusable respirator for to protect against a virus like COVID, we're the same comment we're hearing that you're about your wildland firefighter saying, well, I've been doing this for 40 years and I didn't wear a respirator before and I shouldn't wear a respirator now. What we've come to understand is the following: a reusable, and I'm going to speak about mine, Steve. Okay, our reusable half mask respirator, and I can show you this scientifically. It's more comfortable to the touch because you have a soft elastomeric rubber seal to the skin. Number one. Number two, we did exercises wearing disposable respirators and wearing our respirators, where we identified that our reusable respirators were 1 to 2 degree cooler inside the mask. than any disposable respirator in the marketplace.
About 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you. 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we did accelerated physical exercises. And the gentleman that did this for me is a long distance road cyclist, and he's a professional. And he got on his training bike and he wore all of these and did the same temperature monitoring at the same time periods over an 18-minute period. And even through that physical exertion, it was even cooler. He said, as I breathed harder, it was easier to breathe. Now, I've been in the business forever, and I never did a direct comparison, rubber masks or disposables, and I was shocked. And then finally, when we got our NIOSH approvals for our products in an N95 and a P100 variation, a filtering configuration, our breathing resistance level, both when you breathe in and when you blow out, were like 50% below disposable respirators. It shocked me. So perceptually, I hold this rubber mask in my hand, and you look at it, Steve, and you say, hey, it's hot, it's uncomfortable, I'm not going to be able to wear it. It's the exact opposite.
So you say, put it on, try it. Your hands aren't the ones doing the breathing, so your hands shouldn't be judging it. It's your
Correct.
respiratory system that really needs to test the system out properly.
And during COVID, I went skiing, and I wore it. I'm a downhill skier, and I wore it for the entire weekend. I had no difficulty, didn't hinder my breathing, and I'm an older guy, so I was breathing pretty hard. But it didn't hinder my breathing. It was very comfortable to wear. I felt safe in the lineups, right? So this is the type of product that's in its infancies. Now let's go to the people that we're really trying to protect and work with in the firefighters, right? So perceptually, they have this thinking that a rubber mask or a respirator is difficult. Now, they have a very unique application because they're exposed to everything everywhere. A fire starts in the bush, moves into town, and now it's starting to burn buildings, it's starting to burn plastics, and so forth. So we know those challenges, right?
Right.
But the issue is, in my opinion, they should be wearing something. And I have a document I'll share with you done by the Quebec study by the Research Center for Quebec. It was all on the wildland fire services and respiratory protection and the like. And they understand the challenges, but again, perceptually, the team don't appreciate how comfortable masks are today.
I see, yeah.
And it's also not for their entire shift they're going to be wearing it either. When I spoke to some government specialists that are protecting wildland firefighters, they would say, for example, they would likely just need it for about 2 or 3 hours a day. So it's not something you'd be wearing an entire shift, even though in other industries, like workers might be wearing it for 8 to 12 hours a day.
I see. And there's Canada's, in general has been doing a pretty good job introducing respiratory protection. I think both of the masks that I wore through COVID were Canadian manufactured.
Were they disposables? Were those disposable?
The Envo mask, I'm sure you know what everyone's making.
I know what that is. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that uses a gel, basically a bladder with gel in it to form the seal, which I found very comfortable. Mm-hmm. But the filter medium itself is disposable or replaceable.
Right. Correct. Right.
So,
and there's also sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, there's also a big difference when it comes to wildland firefighter respiratory protection from disposable to reusable. The disposable options will protect against particulate matter, but they won't protect against gases or organic vapors found in the smoke, which can be some of the most dangerous. It will cause a lot of wildland firefighters are at higher rates of developing cancers, and that's a huge problem with firefighters.
And it's not just because they smoke.
No.
Well, we're going to come up with a respirator, Steve, that has a face mask and a hole with a cigarette going in it.
Exactly. Right. Some form of cigarette anyway, right? So we'll see.
And one of the big things as well is if you're not in a lot of places, for example, in Canada and even the US, they're wearing cloth masks for firefighting. Yeah. So it's not even doing that well of a job to protect from particulate matter. So even if that's what they're wearing, they'll end up getting, especially by later on in the fire season, their lung issues are going to have much lower capacity. So they're going to be struggling for even some of the basics that they would have done at the start of the season.
And they may even be worse off, right? Because in addition to all of the airborne things that were not filtered, now they end up with cotton in their lungs as well from the mask itself. So that's no solution. So how many problems could we solve at once with the right PPE regulator? As a scuba diver, I'd wear a full face mask. It provided physical protection against damage to my face. It provided, positive pressure air, and it also had comms built in, where I could speak to my buddy or the surface support crews. Are we, and the firefighters all have to wear a helmet, and now they have to wear a respirator. They need eye protection, both from heat, from gases, and from physical impingement. So are we moving towards some type of a comfortable headgear that does all these things, provides proper head protection, eye protection, respiratory protection, and comms?
Well, so the thing you can get to is one of the devices suited for that application would be a powered air purifying respirator, a PAPR, PAPR, right?
Yeah.
And PAPRs have systems that have helmets with visors that lift up and down. But you have a battery. You have to carry around a battery on your back.
Right.
And then with the exposure to the heat elements, I do know of many foundries. I'm trying to think of hot radiant type of heat that have moved to powered air purifiers. So those are a great tool in the toolkit to offer, right?
Yeah.
But when we look, in my opinion, when we look at the risk management process and the selection criteria, because not everybody's going to buy a PAPR, because a PAPR is not cheap, right? You're talking $1,500 to $2,000 a unit. Then you got parts after that. You got repairs, and you have batteries that you have to manage. Okay, right. So it'll be a collaboration of products, and what we're hoping that the market in wildland fire services sees is going from a bandana, and then people saying, okay, how about an N95 disposable, right?
Right.
And what next step we'd like to see them do is go to an air purifying respirator in our half or full face piece configuration. Okay. Because these products are designed you can put a helmet on it. Right. With a full face piece, you don't need a visor. For guys like us three on the call, us four on the call, there's three of us. I'm looking at myself twice. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you get to my age, Steve.
You have multiple opinions, right?
And but what happens is you can put prescription. We have inserts, accessories that allow you to put your prescription lens inside, so you continue to get a seal. But the issue is that perceptually the firefighter doesn't understand or has tried our type of a product. And I'm not going to say all products are comfortable, right? Not all half masks are the same, right. But there are comfortable solutions for the firefighters to try.
Okay. So it's kind of a buyer's journey here, from no protection to bandanas to
budget.
Right. Yeah.
And budget, right?
Yeah. And so what is the buying journey there? Are PPE provided by the agencies that are sending the firefighters? Are the firefighters providing their own PPE? How does that work?
It depends on the jurisdiction. So, for example, in Canada, it's on the employer to provide the training and the protection to the worker. But in different states, it might be different regulations. So it might be on the worker themselves to buy it. But then you also have to look at other factors. For example, if it's an employer purchasing it, and often, for example, in Canada, it is the government that's purchasing it. They're also paying for any time the workers do get occupational diseases. They're paying the disease. They're paying for overtime. They're paying for early medical retirement. They're also paying in Canada for all the medical. If they have to go to hospital, those bills aren't very cheap. And a single hospital bill for something, for example, for an occupational cancer, would equal more than equipping the entire workforce with elastomeric respirators.
I thought that in Canada, from the time you got diagnosed till you got treatment, you died before you got to treatment, and then they saved a lot of money. Is that not true?
No, no,
That's
no.
In Northern Ontario, maybe.
that's the rumor. You need an MRI. Great. It'll be 9 months. We'll work you in. Did you want to come in the morning or the afternoon?
No, it's every place has, you'll hear stories like that.
Yeah.
I can speak from personal perspective. I've had 2 hip replacements, 3 hip operations. I've had MRIs. I've had countless other things. I'm sounding like I'm a really sick kid there, but I've never had any real long delays. Knock on wood, unfortunately.
Well, you're just pushing. You're a few years post warranty expiration, and then
That's a long time ago, Steve.
right. Yeah, the
We'll
warranty
stop
expires
replacing
and
the parts soon.
everything
Pretty soon
breaks.
we'll just need a brand new unit.
You're not there yet, Nick. But yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's this. The system was designed to go to 30. We get to 40. At 40, the warranty expires. The next day, everything breaks. Right?
Yeah.
Your knees go out. Your hip goes. You need glasses.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got technology working for us, though. So
Yeah.
So the ultimate would be like a comms equipped PAPR, right? But it's expensive.
You know what the ultimate would be? Is that if you had an air tank that could last hours and hours and hours, that would be the best solution. A a CBA, right? Because
Yeah.
you have your supplied air. They're heavy, but we don't have the technology yet to get past that hour rate. But even an hour
So
cylinder,
we kind of, well, we do, but not by supplying air, but by supplying oxygen through the rebreathing units. Right? Because when I was a rescue diver, we had rebreather units that they just recycle the same CO2 that you're breathing, but they just keep adding a little bit of oxygen to keep it at 20%, and we could get like 9 to 12 hours out of those.
Yeah, right. But they're heavy, right?
And expensive.
Right?
Well,
So
actually, instead of a huge tank, it was a little ball of oxygen. It was smaller than a bowling ball, about the size of a cantaloupe.
Yeah.
As a high pressure tank, but then again, you're probably also still getting into a pretty expensive system.
Yeah, the technology is not there yet to get us to that place, right? But we do have baby steps and choices for the firefighters to make, and for the municipalities or the associations, whoever does the buying, to determine what their budgetary constraints are.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, though, Claudio, about the benefit being a supplied air system, because a filtration system can't add oxygen, and if there's no oxygen there, you're breathing really clean, oxygen-free gases,
Right.
Which really not going to help you very, very much.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Filtered nitrogen is not going to keep you alive very well.
Right.
Or CO2 or carbon monoxide or anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
It'll be good for making jokes when you're trying to breathe out nitrogen, though.
Right. Hey, Claudio, you said you were going skiing with your mask on.
Mhm.
And you talked about a -1.5 to -5, depending on your measuring system, drop. Was that the case in skiing, that you had cooler air, or did it actually help protect you from the cold by warming the area a little bit?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So because I was think of, you cup your hands over your nose and mouth, right?
Yeah.
And so what it does, you're right, it did help to keep the air warmer, right? It was a very crisp day. I'm going to say probably 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was a beautiful sunny day, luckily for the weekend, but it was cold. And I had no discomfort in breathing, like, the dry air if you're out in cold weather, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good point. It helped in the cold condition. It helped to keep the breath, warm.
I see. Yeah, because that's I do the same thing, right? I try to pull my jacket up like this when I'm outside in the cold, and hopes that some of that heat coming off my chest warms the air a little bit before it gets in there and freezes all the alveoli, which is never fun.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of your technology is developed in-house, and to what degree are you modifying or using off the shelf available cartridges, etc.
So our company, I purchased a company in Kansas that makes respiratory protection, and all of our technology is internal. We haven't outsourced any engineering; we've done it all ourselves. And the filtration materials, because of the length of time the business has been around, we have a stable base of American-made filtration materials. So it's another point I'll make is that all raw materials, all products are manufactured in our plant. The raw materials are purchased 100% from American-made suppliers, and so we have no exposure at this time to foreign challenges, logistical supplies, right?
Not
So
just logistical supplies, but credibility, challenges as well. Like,
exactly,
is the thing really what it says it is? Does it do what it says it does?
yes,
Yeah,
and
that's been an issue.
we're working on more masks. As you can maybe see over my shoulder, we're developing another variation of our mask in more sizes.
Okay.
What my hope is, and this is for the general public because we'll fit the occupational workplace, including firefighters. But with the onslaught of the pandemic and the fear for more to come sooner, it's about trying to obtain a proper fit on an even wider population of people,
Yeah.
right? Because when we see in the healthcare market, we have smaller, petite people, Asians with different facial
Right.
structures and so forth. So my objective is to offer more anatomically designed sealing properties in the face pieces. That's my next mission.
Okay. Have you checked out the Envo system?
Yes, I
Because
know it. I know it well. Yep.
yeah, in my experience, that gel conforms, very easily to a wide variety of facial structures.
Yep.
Uh, you know, I think that the film that they're using to enclose it is a little bit on the light side. If you were, putting this in an industrial setting, you're gonna leak the gel at some point.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
that that
So
that could probably be a replaceable piece.
yeah, and for us, and if you'd like, I'll send you samples of ours so you can see and feel and touch it. But the intention of our design of products is really to make them rugged, robust, and durable, but very, very comfortable. It's a tough thing to do, but we've been able to do it. We've been able to do
Right. Yeah. Soft on the inside, hard on the outside.
it. Exactly, exactly. Because people from the industrial perspective, they beat the hell out of these products, right?
Yeah.
They
Right.
really do. So the nice thing is we've been making these products for years. We made some minor, excuse me, minor modifications, some new molds, and we end up with this product that now we are promoting the replacement of disposable respirators.
Okay.
So it's quite a feat, and so forth.
Are there? I'm seeing what kids would describe as skins. Right. When you put a different look on on an app or something like that. You can see, changing your phone to dark mode or something like that. But there seems to be some market out there for taking a product like yours and then wrapping it,
Decorating it,
putting in, what do you call it?
decorating it.
Decorating it. Yeah, but decorating it with a Nomex cover that provides some protection to your face and also to the apparatus itself.
Yeah.
Is that is that something that's intrinsic for you in house, or is this an aftermarket add-on?
It would have to be an aftermarket add-on, but you have to be careful because with NIOSH, with respiratory protection, if you do something to the mask, and I'll use a mask for example, right? But
Yeah,
any respirator, if you do something to a rubber mask that you can't see physically what may be wrong with it, that
yeah,
voids the approval, right?
right,
So structurally you have to make sure there's no holes in it, there's no bubbles, and bubbles are caused by certain chemicals that may attack the rubber. We want to make sure there's no deterioration. And then the other thing is that if you're putting some type of second skin, you have to make sure that that skin doesn't interfere with the part the rubber touches your face. Because when you
right.
obtain a fit test, you have to ensure that nothing interferes with that seal.
Okay, yeah. I'll have to pull it out later, but I saw, there's a company advertising something that looks like a black bandana, but what it says is it's compatible with the following full or half masks. So you're probably familiar with that.
Yeah, yeah. So we had during the pandemic, our Comfort Air NX respirator, so it's no exhalation valve NX, is we made it in white to distinguish it for medical applications, and the public, we sell it every day to the public. And then we had people that, because they were being criticized for wearing a respirator, they started to decorate the masks so that they were less, noticeable. And I'll send you an email. You can't believe what some people did to it. It was remarkable. Some really cool stuff, right?
Right.
But
Creative.
again, if you do that, that avoids the NIOSH approval per se, because
Yep.
you can't see what's going on behind the decoration.
Right. Compromising the seal.
Correct.
I see. Okay. Very interesting. Are there any cosmetic changes that were made or creative expressions that manifested that didn't compromise the seal?
You can do some easy stuff like on the front of the mask, as long as you don't mark it up too much. And what I'll do after our conversation, I'll send you a slide that shows you the pictures. But we had people that, like, our mask is white, and they put some a big smile on the face and say, "Hey,
Right.
I'm Nurse Judy," or they, for kids. One person decorated, and it looked like a clown's face. They had the red nose and whatever.
Oh, that's great.
And the issue there during the pandemic is that if we saw those brutal pictures of a patient interacting with a patient in distress being hooked up to a ventilator, and the healthcare worker is garbed up with a coveralls, a gown, a mask, gloves, and so forth. And when you put the mask on, there's no facial recognition, right? You can't see a smile or try to. So people were putting smiles or little messages on the mask to try to help with the patient interaction, to try to give it some type of, I don't know what the word is, I guess, comfort or humanity to it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And some people were also making it like a fashion statement to go with some of the clothing. Like there's one lady who had a really nice dress, and she made it so it would match her dress.
That's great.
You won't believe when you see what I sent you. It was
I'm looking forward to that.
Beautiful artwork.
Right. And I'm guessing if you have a young daughter or a granddaughter, you'll find glitter all over your mask.
And what happened was that people stopped bugging them on the street.
Really?
Yeah, particularly in the U.S. market, people were very vocal about and criticizing people wearing a mask. And
there were actually places where they were banning the masks.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievably.
Yeah. So they did this, and people said, "Wow, that's really cool. Where'd you get that?"
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So you've seen where the market was. You've made huge advances in the offering. And now what's next? Where do you see it going from here?
Well, the big thing that we have to watch out for from a manufacturing supply perspective is I serve on several pandemic preparedness panels, and everybody's still very on the high alert. You see what's going on with H1N1. And the big thing is to try to prepare manufacturing or supply for the next outbreak that doesn't appear, and I don't want to be a negative Nelly here, but with what's going on, we're experiencing it with the bird flu. We need to be able to be in a position to supply product. And that means from a government level, it also means from a public perspective, how do we get products to people? And really what a respirator does during the pandemic is slow down the advancement of the virus until other interventions can be introduced, right? Vaccines or pills, I don't know, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's not a permanent solution. It's to buy us time and to prevent the shutdown of the economy and to save lives.
Yeah.
That there's never so many people sick at once that the hospitals can't accommodate them.
Exactly.
And some of the things like the working groups we're on looked at is like protecting the supply chain, for example. So not just healthcare workers, but also anybody who's essential, transportation, manufacturing, because that really drives the economy. And if we could protect those workers, then we could keep everything open. We would never have to experience shutdowns. We would never have to experience hospitals overflowing either. So we could run everything as normal.
Right. Food delivery trucks.
Yes. Food manufacturing, medical device manufacturing, firefighters, EMS responders, transportation, the financial markets, and so on.
Critical infrastructure.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it helps reduce things like other things that cause like issues from pandemics, like inflation as well.
Right.
And you're stopping future variants. Like for example, in Colorado, the new strain that's infecting workers was originally went from the cattle and now spilled back over to birds. So now it's a bigger
Right.
concern, and now there's a second farm in Colorado where there's a huge outbreak. So it's another one with 1.3 million birds.
Wow. That's scary out there. And then, of course, they were saying, the bird flu is never going to go across to people, and now, of course, they're finding it in people. So your supply chain, not just your supply chain, but your ability to crank these things out, with speed and volume, is enormously important.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we were fortunate. We received our U.S. operation received a grant from the Care Sparks program in 21, and the automation and equipment that we put in was fantastic. So what we're doing now too is we're taking other measures, additional measures with more molds and so forth, to be ready, right? To be ready.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And how large is the playground of Dentecs and Dentec competitors or co-conspirators?
No, we're a small market share player because please understand we have companies, long-standing companies like 3M and
Right.
MSA that have been around a long time, right? But our
Sure.
product has been around a long time. The manufacturer we purchased was one of the originators of air purifying respirators, reusable
I see.
respirators, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's a collaboration of suppliers that'll help the needs of the population, both from the healthcare, workplace, and the public.
Okay. Let me ask you about another area. We talked about the need for batteries if you're using a PAPR system. Are there fixed installation systems? I'm in this vehicle. I drive this fire truck, or I man this post at a infrastructure facility where I could have either an external air supply or external power source to run my PAPR. Are
Um,
those in play?
to run the PAPR, batteries nowadays are about between 8 to 12 hours, right? But when you're talking about fixed systems, from an air supply perspective, okay, if you're using a hose line to connect to some type
Right.
of air source,
Yep.
so if it's in a building operation, Steve, you can use a compressor and you can attach what are called purification panels to it. And that
Okay.
purifies the air coming out of the purification panel, make sure there's no oil, junk, and stuff like that,
Right.
right?
Just like a scuba compressor with the filtration in it.
Exactly. It's exactly what
Okay.
it is. But most plants, that have requirement for that. You can also have a multi bottle system where you can think of acetylene tanks, like welding tanks, the big
Right.
bottles like that.
Cascade system. Yeah.
Yes, and you can have like 2, 3, 4, 5 bottle setups, and you
Okay.
can connect several people to it depending on your connecting devices. So you do have fixed systems and mobile compressor systems that can be used, but in a firefighter setting, you ain't going to be dragging around a lot of hose into the
Yeah.
forest.
No, I don't think. Well, you're dragging the fire hose. You
Yeah,
have
that's true.
another hose that runs alongside it with your air supply.
Well, listen, if I can't get them to put on a reusable respirator, they're not going to drag around another line.
Yeah, they're sure not. They're sure not. Wow, interesting. Well, I'm fascinated by the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I think it's both important. Have you ever developed things in house because you're, small, intelligent, and nimble? That then, you pass that IP onto a manufacturer with broader capabilities and distribution.
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Okay.
Nobody's approached us. So if you're listening out there,
Yeah. So if you work at MSA or 3M or something, I'm wondering,
yeah.
does Dentec have something that they could purchase from you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the
We'll
price is
find out.
right.
Hey, we're gonna shake the leaves out there for that. Well, I absolutely appreciate you guys spending the morning with me to let our market know And really, it is imperative that people protect themselves from what they're breathing. It's just recent, as you said, but people finally found out that in the wildfire smoke, they're breathing heavy metals and they're breathing all types of other impurities that they thought, it's not just oak smoke anymore.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's not just by the fire line either. Like the forest fires from northern Quebec last summer, they were sending a lot of people in New York to the ERs. So it could be thousands of kilometers, so thousands of miles away, and still impact other people. So it's not just right where the fire's occurring either.
Right.
Steve, on a serious note, I do want to thank the firefighters wherever they are for what they do. People, you read about it in a newspaper and you say, oh, there's a forest fire blazing in Northern California. And, people reading the paper say, wow, that's unfortunate. What they don't appreciate, because I've seen it firsthand, the challenges that our firefighters have to deal with, and the fact that they risk their lives to do that. It's remarkable. And these guys these men and women are working, like you said, 6,000 calories an hour, whatever, crazy conditions. And we need to protect them, and we need to make sure that they're capable to handle the next one. So thank you to all of you who participate in that.
Absolutely. We send our appreciation as well, even though I know a lot of these guys, and they're in it for the fun. But
wow,
I mean, it is.
I got other ideas of fun.
Yeah, right. But at that age, it's there's a certain romanticism associated with it, and heroicism, and luckily people are attracted to that.
Yeah, lots of
camaraderie.
Camaraderie
being a huge thing. Absolutely, Nick. So I would like to see a future in which PPE becomes less necessary because we're sending robots to do a robot's job and not sending men to do a job that a robot should be doing. If we described the physical conditions of a wildfire in terms of temperature, toxicity, difficulty, and we were saying that these are the conditions on that planet, we would never think to send people there. But when those conditions exist on places in this planet, we don't hesitate to send people there, which makes zero sense to me. So,
and there's always innovations. Like I think, for example, like your innovation with the one that's on tracks, if you paired that, for example, with a Sikorsky helicopter, or sorry, I'm trying to think of the other name of the helicopter in Canada. That's so I wrote a couple things down. There was Sikorsky helicopter, the S-64 air crane, and the Chinook helicopter, for example. That could be airlifted to wherever the fires are, dropped, and that could quickly help protect communities. Because I know, like in the U.S. and Canada, there's lots of communities right now under evacuation. But if we use combined technologies together, and we could drop these in places where they are, we could more effectively fight the fires, and it would save a lot of money on top of lives and infrastructure as well.
Absolutely, Nick. And the helicopters themselves can be robotic autonomous craft.
Mm-hmm.
So that, because 25% of the fatalities that occur in wildland firefighting, are related to aerial attack. They're aircraft issues. So if we can move more towards an army of robotic hotshots, I think that'll become a lot safer and more effective, more efficient. So, well, I'm excited to see the future all around. I wish I would live long enough to see the things that we're imagining, but I know our kids and grandchildren will benefit from these things. So thank you so much.
Because of our age, Steve, just remember the Martian movies where they used to put a bubble glass over their head in a suit.
Yeah.
One day. Right. One day.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, I agree. So, coming to us live from Canada, the country that can't keep its smoke to itself.
You're welcome.
Hey, thank you. No, honestly, it's a good thing when the smoke hits places where it doesn't normally hit, because it lets us know that this is an international problem, that no one's unaffected. There are many countries, but there's only one atmosphere. We all share it, and it impacts us all.
A lot of countries work together on it. Like last year, we had to have firefighters from Greece, France, Mexico, the U.S. Help us out because the fires are getting bigger and we just don't have the manpower anymore.
Right. Well, that's a whole other issue why you don't have the manpower and whatever political decisions were behind deciding to cut the fire force. But, there's problems we can tackle because they're engineering related. Then there's problems that are political that we have very little influence over or understanding of and never will, because that's the nature of humans. But I really appreciate the innovative work that you're doing and the lives that you're saving because of it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
You bet. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. And when I'm up in your neighborhood, I'll definitely look you up and stop by.
We'll have some Canadian beer for you.
Yeah, open door.
Nick and Claudio from Dentec, working on some very original and very useful products because people will actually wear them. So thank you guys so much for the work that you're doing. You've been listening to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire. We're working on some other things that also use air to knock down fires, but it's coming out of a jet engine and not through a respirator for the moment. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.